Closing up to 3:30, I guess might as well get started. I got a bunch here and I want to leave time for questions at the end. So if I didn't scare anyone by telling them what I do without actually telling anybody what I do, we can get started. I'm sure some of you may have seen a similar phrase at the start of some schooling you've been to. So Yosak, he's very early in the anime, first season. He's been injured, he's sick, they come across him, and they feed him something, and he gets better. Does anybody know what did he have? And you'll have to yell because my hearing's not so good. Yeah, they fed him on his limes to cure scurvy. And they do actually present this relatively accurately. You know, weakness, fatigue, loss of appetite, the sunken eyes, the pale skin, and of course, you're not going to heal from a stomach wound if you have scurvy. So that's all there. But the reason I threw this in at the last minute was not for, I just started watching last night and saw this. Known this for a while. This is something else I came across last night. It's in a French textbook. They actually used this example in a French textbook. So, yes, we can use anime in teaching, apparently. And they make it official. Because apparently One Piece is like super huge in France, so I guess this makes sense. And with that out of the way, this is the world of One Piece according to science. How's everybody enjoying Zenkaikon so far? Happy to be back at a con in person again? Alright, and I'm Anime Science 101. Breaking down anime, manga, video games with science is what I do. So, for anyone who doesn't know, One Piece has been going on since 1977. 1,043 chapters, 1,013 anime episodes, 15 movies, 13 specials, 7 OVAs, 4 shorts, and supposedly a Netflix live action is coming. There is a lot. For anyone who doesn't know, Rubber Man dreams of being Pirate King alongside a lovely badass movie crew, and there's a lot of action and surprisingly little actual pirating, which is shocking. And I got into this because of my students. My students brought me into One Piece, and I've seen the first 40, 50 episodes of the anime, and I've been reading the manga since the end of Whole Cake Island. So my approach to it has been sort of old, recent, and a piecemeal in the middle. There will be spoilers, but only so far as chapter 1028. So everything here except for one part is going to be all from the anime, and I'll try to hopefully remember to give you a heads up when that happens. And again, this is according to science. So let's start off. One Piece. That world is not Earth, but it's supposed to be like Earth. So of course the answer is, what can science tell us about it? I'm kind of going to break this into 3 parts. One is sort of going to be like a physics, geography side, then we'll do some astronomy, and then we'll do bio at the end. So we will be jumping around, and hopefully I don't drive anybody off. So let's do the physics. And if I pull a prank with my students, half of them would believe it.
Do we end the show at work?
I'm going to. So you know I'm not pulling it out of my ass. So how big? The owner doesn't tell us how big it is. Now, Earth has a circumference of a little over 40,000 kilometers. The One Piece world, we have no idea. He doesn't tell us. And this is my valiant attempt at doing it. The hard part is, Eiichiro Oda's art style is wildly inconsistent when it comes to scale, so you can get a completely different size of the planet depending on which chapter of the manga did you look at, which frame of the manga did you look at, which episode of the anime did you look at. Everything is from like half the Earth size to 2.5 times the Earth size to, according to the story, billions of kilometers, because Kuma hits Luffy and rejects him at the speed of light for 3 days. You know, at the end of Sabaody. So, I don't think the planet's that big. And I don't think he's circled it like 50 million times either. So, this is going to be my take and how I did it to kind of figure out how big this world is. Because it lets me do some other fun stuff along the way. So I will be giving the science as we go. Pressure, how hard something is pressing down on something else. Pressure is force divided by area. Air pressure is the column of air over your head pressing down on you. And the higher you go in altitude, the more this decreases. And keeping it simple, the air pressure gives you a basic idea of how much oxygen you're going to get, which some of you might be picking up on where I'm going to go next. Skypea is 10,000. It's 10,000 meters, essentially 10 kilometers in the sky, and nobody has any trouble breathing, especially the straw hats. This is a bit of a problem because Mount Everest. Above 8,000 meters is what we like to call the death zone. Nothing can survive because there's not enough oxygen. That's a problem. So then, how's this going to work? They're 10,000 meters in the air, they're fighting and running around like normal, they're not dying. So, throwing aside sparkly pirate magic, let's take a look. So, this is what I did. Bogota, Colombia has an elevation of a little over 2,600 meters. And it's as high as you can go without acclimatizing, basically getting used to the altitude. If you go any higher than Bogota without acclimatizing, you'll pass out when you get there. The Straw Hats didn't pass out when they arrived in Skypea, so it can't be higher than this, according to the air pressure. So assuming Skypea is 10, we're going to keep it as 10 kilometers in the air, we're going to say the air pressure at Skypea is the same as Bogota, Colombia. And we can use this fancy formula because it has gravity in it. So if I put in everything except gravity, I can find out what the gravity on the monkey's planet is, which is what I did. So we're going to say that the pressure at altitude, the PO, is the same as, Bogota, Colombia. Now, pressure at sea level is going to be higher, and we actually know what that is too. Because if one piece of world is Earth-like, and we can assume everybody has similar biology to us, oxygen toxicity. Too much of anything is a bad thing. If the pressure gets too high, oxygen becomes toxic. If you've gone scuba diving, this comes up. This is why you don't scuba dive with pure oxygen, because that just ends badly for everyone. So we know what the pressure at sea level has to be, and we know what the pressure at the altitude has to be. Everybody with me so far? So I did some math. And this is the first half of that. Question? So here it is. So that's the first half of doing the equation. Now we're going to plug in all these constants, mass of one air molecule, altitude, Boltzmann's constant, temperature, all this bunch of wacky stuff. And then we get with gravity, that is 29.8 meters per second squared. It's like almost 3 times what it is here. And assuming I didn't mess anything up, because when I was doing this, I was getting 2 numbers. One is this 29.8, 3 times. The other one is 0.0029, which is like less than an asteroid. So there's either like no gravity on the planet or 3 times ours. And we can, using that gravity number, we now know that the pressures at the different altitudes, and this is just with it in pounds per square inch, so you can see it, which means we can, since we know what the gravity is, we can have some fun with this. Kaido jumping off of Skypea, falling all the way down 10,000 meters. It takes a long time. Falling, and blammo on an island. Now, at that speed, it really wouldn't have mattered if you hit the water or the island, it would have been the same. But knowing the gravity, and he probably weighs at least like 1,000 kilograms, which means he hits with 1,900 meganewtons, which, to give you a reasonable example, that's equal to the amount of energy from the sun that hits Earth in 1 year. So he really is quite insane. If I use the other number, he hits no harder than like a moderate car accident. So one is like nothing, and the other is the planet's broken. Don't do that. Yep.
But that wasn't Skypiea, wasn't it just normal Sky Island you jumped from? So
I had assumed it was Skype. I had assumed it was Skypiea. They were one and the same.
Well, no, because they had mentioned prior before, like Nami, for a 2-year gap, went to the Sky Island, but not Skypiea.
I had assumed this was off Skypiea. Now,
Okay.
frankly, I think it changes by only a couple thousand meters. So, like, the actual numbers will change, but like the scale of it's not going to change.
Gotcha.
You know, it's still going to be ridiculously too much in one and like ridiculously too small in the other. So, of course, this means Luffy weighs like nothing or 429 pounds. So, he's an extreme lightweight or a very chompy boy. That is true. Now, because we have the, real quick, because I know when the atmosphere ends, that's when there's zero pressure at 309 kilometers, that allows me to do some math. Here's the Earth's volume. Using the atmosphere, Earth's atmosphere is 0.39% of the Earth's total volume, so if I know the volume of the atmosphere, I can do the other thing, and I can basically do that same math with the planet of One Piece, and find out the planet's volume. If I know the volume for everything, I can get the circumference, which gives me the radius. So the One Piece world, here's the mass so you can see it, is 57,500 and some kilometers in circumference. So a little bit bigger than Earth, but not by much. And if we have we have all this, and we can use the density of the Earth, and we have the volume, we can find the mass of the planet. So we know the gravity, we know the radius. We can do more math. We know how much Luffy is. Apparently he's 64 kilograms according to Oda. So if I know Luffy, I know the distance between them, which is the radius of the planet. I have everything else. I can solve for the mass of the planet, which, to give a reference, that's about 27% larger than Earth. So right in about that range, you work everything out with the math. And again, if I use the other number for gravity, Earth is the size of the Royal Albert Hall in London. So you're either like 27% bigger or like the size of an opera house. Take your pick. Which leads me to this last one. And I could go back more with the math if people want. I just figured I didn't want to put anybody to sleep with that. So how big is it? It's as big as Oda wants it to be. Nothing makes sense. Nothing, it doesn't matter how I do it, it just makes my brain hurt, and I had to make far too many assumptions in terms of it being Earth-like for it to work. So, if the planet is whatever he wants it to be, the science ain't gonna work. However, if we go with that 3 times Earth's gravity number, it lets us do some things with astronomy. Like this slide. So here they show, apparently, the One Piece planet and the moons surrounding it. Now, if they're using a geocentric model, this could be the other planets in the solar system. Which I don't think he's doing. If it's a heliocentric model, which means the sun is the center of the universe, those are all moons around the planet. And I'm more inclined to go with moons around the planet because if it has 3 times our gravity, it's going to capture more stuff in its orbit. So the higher the planet's gravity, the more likely you are to capture moons. So you could actually have a bunch of them floating around.
All the moons are that why the weather is so pretty?
Probably. Now, the only thing he misses is the tides should be a lot more insane, as is volcanic activity. So we should see more volcanoes and more insane, tidal patterns. But he does kind of do that in its reverse mountain. This is why I put this in. Now, water flows up the mountain in reverse mountain, and then it flows back down. So that's how it is, it works in the show. You've got four rivers going up a mountain and one coming down. How? They explain it as ocean currents, but it's also the tidal forces. If you assume there's 7 moons on this planet, that's a lot of influence on the tides. So if all those moons lined up the right way once in a while, and they had enough gravity, they could pull the water up the mountain. So having all those moons could explain why reverse mountain works. The tidal forces overlap, and they're all pulling in the same direction, and you could theoretically pull it uphill. And then they'd leave, and they'd have to all go down that one, wonderful moon near the entrance to the, the Grand Line. This also means that the current in Fishman Island has to go one way, because the red line goes around the planet. So if reverse mountain works, all the water's going to one ocean. It has to go the other. It has to go back out at Fishman Island. Otherwise, you just have one ocean. The other would be dry because all the water would get pulled to one side. So that's it for the physics and astronomy stuff. I went through that pretty quick, so I'll sort of pause here because I threw a lot of stuff at you at once.
Does that theoretically mean that one of these planets doesn't rotate on its axis because it would have to all the moons would have to be focused in a certain way, like all the water up the
No, it could still rotate on its axis. We don't know the rotations of the moons.
Okay.
So the planet could rotate this way, and the moon could be going this way. They don't have to match up. And I'm just saying that if you had 7 and they were big enough, if all 7 lined up, that'd be some tremendous tidal force on the planet that really could pull water and do something crazy. So there's like a small tidbit of science in reverse mountain.
So, like, that surrounds the red line, the Grand Line generally.
You're gonna have to speak up with everything going on.
Yeah, so how would you then explain the conflict between that surrounds the Grand Line, which is no currents, no nothing moves out there. That's why seeking thing out, and like any special material to even move into the combo. It's on both sides of the Grand Line. There's no movement in the combo.
Oh, that's the spinning of the Coriolis effect. If you actually look on Earth, we have parts of the ocean around the tropics of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer where the wind doesn't blow. That's actually an exaggerated form of something that already happens here. So there are parts, like if you look at some of the old sailing charts, there are parts of the ocean in certain latitudes that they try to avoid or don't go through because there's no trade wind. Because you have winds sort of in the tropic area, and then you'll have wind in the sort of middle zone, and around the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, there's going to be less. Just like around the Arctic Circle, like you'll get a little bit less with some of the trade winds. So like an area where the wind is less, that's a natural phenomenon of the weather with how the Earth spins, and so with the atmosphere and how the rising and cooling of air works. Like we have periods like that in on Earth. So he just exaggerated something that was already here. So the calm belt, he based that one in reality. And I didn't want to go super into all the the meteorology of that. And I was like, I figured I'd do the size of the planet first. All right. Now we get more into the fun part, where I like to go, the biology. And now we're getting into spoilers for chapter 1028. So we've got the modified humans. And the only ones we really know about, they show us is the Vinsmoke family, Sanji's family. And they have what they call a modified lineage factor. And it's DNA, guys. It's DNA. That's what they're talking about. They call it the blueprint of life. They're talking about DNA. That's what's going on. So no big shocker on this one. Of course, the whole question becomes, how does he do it? And, of course, no clue, but Sanji's backstory tells us how. Sanji's backstory with his mother actually tells us how he did it. And that whole backstory with Sanji and the mother tells us exactly what Judge was doing to modify his children. You know, Father of the Year without him. You know, he's not. You know, he's not Tucker levels of depravity, but he's got to be number 2.
For science.
Yeah, he's got to be number 2 on that list. Now, how he did it is he used something called a viral vector. Certain types of viruses, when they infect our cells, insert their DNA into our DNA. Retroviruses are the best example of this. So when a retrovirus infects a human cell, it's going to jump in, merge, come in, its DNA gets released, you know, its RNA gets turned into DNA, that DNA then gets inserted into ours, where it makes more copies of itself and then leaves the cell. So the idea, and this goes to real science, the idea of, you know, fixing somebody's DNA, inserting it in, you know, having an extra piece of DNA and inserting it into your DNA, that's all scientific reality. Nature does it already. It's just a matter of getting it put in the right spot and where you want it. And that's sort of the big hang-up when you go into gene therapy and genetic engineering. It's not, oh, is it possible to put DNA in? Yes, it is. It's putting it in where you want it and having it work. That's really the problem. And the viruses solve that first problem because they already put their DNA into our DNA. In certain cases, every virus doesn't do this, but a lot of them do. So it's probably a retrovirus that he used. And the reason I'm saying it's a retrovirus over other kinds is retroviruses can infect every different type of cell. Some viruses, like the adenovirus that gives you a common cold, really only infects the lungs, in the nose. It doesn't get into every cell in the body, whereas other retroviruses do. So that's why I went with the retrovirus, because these augmentations they get are across the entire body. So how does she stop a virus, and how do I know it's a retrovirus? Because antiretroviral drugs have a ton of side effects. Some of these stop when you stop taking them. Some of them can be long-term. So I'm not giving all of them. I'm giving you some of the ones that are going to be more long-term. So she took a cocktail of antiretroviral drugs causing fatigue, high cholesterol, heart disease, bone loss, and organ damage. That's why she probably died sometime after Sanji being born. Because you assume he's born, she stopped taking the drugs. So why didn't she recover? Well, it's because some of the side effects are terrible, and they stayed with her. So that sort of puts together how I think this works. Now, we also know they cause mental changes. And this one isn't made up either. There's a very, very rare condition called congenital insensitivity to pain. It is beyond extremely rare, where they don't feel pain. Like you poke them in you stick a needle in their arm, they literally do not feel it. There's no recollection of that pain at all. And when we see them in action, they kind of just let them they get crap beat out of each other and they don't care. Like they take a lot of damage, they don't really seem to show any pain. And there's a subset within this congenital insensitivity that don't feel emotional pain. So like, you can call them whatever you want, they're not going to know that they were insulted. Like they just don't feel any emotional pain. And having met one of these in person, they're a bit off because of that. Because they don't feel it themselves, they don't pick up on the fact when they're inflicting it on others. And part of these augmentations could have caused a mutation to give all the Vinsmoke, Sanji, this particular condition, which is why they would be heartless bastards. Everybody with me? All right, now, of course you're gonna ask, and this is the big spoiler, why now? Why now, after all this time, where Sanji's been completely normal, does it happen? You know, we see during the fight in Wano, these augmentations kick in. So why, after years of being normal, would he all of a sudden now have them? What happened? And of course, because Oda said so is perfectly valid, it's his story. However, there is a scientific reason for this. And I'm sure some of you may have heard of it. And it's caused by something a lot of us in this room have probably had.
Shingles and chickenpox?
Yes! I heard it in the back. Chickenpox, varicella zoster, usually occurs in kids. It's about 5 to 10 days, and pretty harmless considering in the entire world. That's worldwide, every country, there's only like 6,000 some deaths a year. So very, very, it's not overall as dangerous as others.
I heard it's only really deadly if you're grown, but you're forgetting,
Yeah, with kids it's even less, but you still see about, so many kids die a year, and it's usually immunocompromised cases or just weird stuff goes along with it. Now, chickenpox is important because shingles. So this is why we bring it up. Varicella zoster, shingles, it's called so when you get shingles, it's not that, oh, you caught chickenpox as an adult. No, you had it as a kid, and it was laying dormant in your nerve cells. And then something happens that weakens your immune system, and then the virus flares up again. And that's why it has those weird patterns on the body, because it's infecting down the nerve cell. And that's why you get the weird patterns with it. And typically in people over 50, and it's almost always associated with a weakened immune system. So, Sanji, why now? Stress of Wano. Okay, Wano, lots of stress in all those arcs for Sanji. Weakens his immune system. The virus reactivates, because it's infected in every cell of his body, virus reactivates, now he's genetically augmented. So that would be how he sort of was normal, and now he's not. Like there's a scientific reason for that. Now, how much of this was Oda's planning, and how much of this is on the science and you can read too much into things? Take your pick. So, either answer is acceptable. Now, lovely.